Today, India and China have decided to mutually disengage in Ladakh. These were the soldiers who were injured in the fierce clashes with Chinese soldiers in the Galwan Valley. As they recuperate in this hospital in Leh, they had a special visitor, the army chief. General Naravane's visit to Leh comes on a day when news broke that both India and China's military leaders have agreed to a mutual disengagement just weeks after the Galwan episode in which 20 Indian soldiers were killed in action, but not before scores of Chinese soldiers, including a Chinese colonel, were killed as well. As per the agreement reached, the military talks in Moldova were held in a cordial, positive and constructive atmosphere. The modalities of military disengagement in all friction areas in eastern Ladakh will be taken forward by both sides. Away from the military talks, the Foreign Minister, Mr. Jaishankar, held his first face-to-face meeting with his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi, at a virtual meeting of foreign ministers of Russia, India and China.
Respecting international law, supporting multilateralism and promoting common good are the only way to build a durable world order.
Russia, which has very close military ties with both India and China, says both sides can work out their differences together. I don't think that India and China need any help from the outside. I don't think they need to be helped, especially when it comes to country issues. They can solve them on their own. It means the recent events. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has been away in Russia. Today he met Russia's Deputy Defence Minister at a time when India has been pressing Moscow to speedily deliver S-400 surface-to-air missile systems, which India has ordered in a deal worth $5.4 billion. Vishnu Shom for NDTV. Well, joining us now to look at these very important developments, Ambassador K.C. Singh. We're also joined by Lieutenant General D.S. Huda, the former Northern Army commander, and Ananta Krishnan, who is a visiting fellow at Hong Kong University, also a journalist at The Hindu and based in Beijing. Thank you all very much for being with us. Anant, let me come to you first, because in just the last little while, there was this strange piece in the Global Times which said that our defense minister had agreed to meet the Chinese defense minister in Moscow. And then there was a vociferous denial by the defense ministry over here. Did the Chinese actually get ahead of themselves, which is quite unlike the way their media works, which are all mouthpieces in many cases?
That's right, Vishnu. It's very peculiar because I haven't seen this in any official government outlets such as Xinhua or People's Daily. It seems to be some kind of testing of the waters by Global Times, which is in some sense less authoritative than these other papers. But it was a very interesting thing that they're putting this out at the same time that Wang Yi has also made interesting comments at the RIC meet, where he's referred to countries properly handling their sensitive bilateral relations, obviously referring to India given the state of China-Russia ties. So he says that if RIC cooperation is to continue, that bilateral differences have to be handled in a proper way as well. So it seems to be that the Chinese trying to get these engagements going, but at the same time, I think you put it quite correctly that they're getting a bit ahead of themselves.
Ambassador K.C. Singh, a simple, direct question to you. After Galwan, can the Chinese be trusted?
No, I don't think trust has anything to do with it, as you say, but verified trust proper trust will take a long time to establish. After 62, this is a kind of betrayal which we hadn't seen in 50 years. So this will take a long time, but at the same time, let's read their lips. Let's see what they are saying. The word disengage has been used in the past. What exactly does it mean? It may mean two different things to both the sides. Because government here seems to be focusing on Galwan Valley and not so much on the Pongong So Lake, because that is all visible to the satellites, and we know whether the Chinese have vacated Finger 4 area or not. In the Galwan Valley, there is that point where the scuffle took place and soldiers were martyred. Now, where exactly is that point is very difficult to catch on the satellite. And if there is a disengagement, it has to be substantial. Disengagement can be a lathi blow away, a bullet's distance away, or is it really you see a scaling back gradually, which means the armor, the artillery, the reinforcements the Chinese have brought are those beginning to get into their trucks and rolling back. And so too with India. I don't think that's going to happen immediately. first there'll be probably a little separation, and then let's see what happens after that.
Okay. General Huda, when we talk about the separation, there is a concern that we are separating and then there would be a mutual withdrawal, and that would come in stages. But we would essentially be withdrawing within our own territory. It's the Chinese who are the intruders. So while that may be something that works in their benefit, does it really work in ours?
So Vishnu, firstly, I completely agree with what Ambassador K.C. Singh is saying. We are too focused on the Galwan Valley. And I know the Chinese have made claims that, the whole valley belongs to them. But if you look at even the Chinese maps, the current Chinese maps, they roughly show their claim lines or boundaries running through what we are now popularly calling PP14, where the clash took place. I think you will see some separation of forces in this area. I'm sure both India and China don't want a repeat of what happened on June 15th. And so you could well see some separation in these areas.
Yeah.
I think the key is going to be Pangong Tso, because that's where clearly the Chinese have come in and forcefully established themselves in areas that were disputed. They were clearly aware of it. I know they will say that they've come up to their claim line, but the fact is that they have crossed ours and they have come into Indian territory. And the posture that they have adopted there by digging in and making defense work, I don't see them going back in a hurry, Vishnu, in that area.
Anant, is there any particular reason why the Chinese would want to de-escalate in the manner in which they've indicated just a week after Galwan, when this entire disengagement process had ground to a halt?
I think, Vishnu, the devil lies in the details. And I think it's easy for China to say, we want to de-escalate, the situation is stable and controllable, the phrase they keep using, because they are kind of sitting pretty in the areas that they want. At no time so far have they publicly even mentioned that they are going to disengage from anywhere that they see as their territory. In fact, it's the other extreme, where on June 19th, the Chinese Foreign Ministry for the first time said that the entire Galwan Valley is on China's side of the LAC. And that's different from saying they own sovereignty over Galwan Valley, which they could very well claim, but they have publicly shifted the LAC in Galwan Valley. So they haven't really said anything about Pangong Lake, but given what they've been saying about Galwan Valley, where we all assumed the differences in LAC alignment was not as explicit as it is in Pangong Lake, I'd be very surprised if you just see them up and cut and run and fold up all the tents and structures that they've been building on Pangong Lake. It seems very hard to see that happening, even if they are talking about rather ambiguous terms of de-escalation.
Sure. Anant, again, without getting into the rhetoric of who killed more soldiers, has there still been no word, officially or demi-officially, on Chinese casualties at all in Galwan?
Vishnu, the only official word we've had was today, which was a statement from the Foreign Ministry rejecting what General V.K. Singh said, that at least 40 Chinese had died. So the Chinese Foreign Ministry actually responded to that, saying that this was false information. But funnily enough, that's the first actual comment they've made on any kind of information on the number of casualties. They said 40 is not true, but at the same time, they haven't mentioned anything. And going by past record, it took them 32 years to kind of say publicly how many casualties they had in 1962.
Yeah.
So in that sense, going by past precedent, it might be very unlikely.
General Huda, is there a concern that the process of disengagement is going to take a very long time, even if it happens? Both you and Ambassador Singh have spoken about Pangong, but then there is also the Hot Springs area, then further north there is the Depsang Plains as well. And there are multiple reports which suggest that there are incursions in many places, far more places than what satellite pictures or journalists have been able to actually back up. So therefore, this process of the Chinese withdrawing, should it actually happen, it's not going to happen fast. It might actually take years to happen.
Vishnu, I completely agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen in a hurry. Firstly, just look at the so-called depth areas where large forces are built up, both Chinese and Indian. I think with the amount of suspicion that is there on both sides, I don't see de-induction of forces happening even from the depth areas in a hurry. And as you pointed out, are we clear about where exactly? And we are focused on Pangong and we're focused on Galwan. But are there other areas where there are, Chinese incursions? And are they those areas where they have past claims? And I see this, continuing for quite some time. I won't say years or months, but it's not something that's going to get settled very soon.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think we can get ahead of ourselves on this. I'd like to thank General Huda and Anand for joining us.